Let's do it.
29 people. 29 people.
Hello, everyone coming in. Welcome, welcome. We're going to continue to let all of our participants hop in as we are coming. We have you all muted on our end, so hopefully we've covered that. And that you are enjoying a delicious lunch while you lunch and learn with us today about strategies to implement to keep the great talent that you have. That's our focus today. And I know we're just letting folks continue to hop in. So let the masses flood in as Dana starts to share some of the stuff we're doing today. Visually, and she's like, hold on, I'm admitting.
They think we're ready. Here it comes.
As soon as you say it, say, I think we're ready, and then more people pop up. Excellent. Let me change how. I informed somebody one time, well, I can't control how the other attendees view. They'll adjust their screen to how they want. And they said, what? Yeah, like I'm never in full screen. I always exit full screen right away. So I can't control how everyone else views it. It was an interesting conversation for those that aren't aren't used to leading virtual events and things like that. It was an unknown thing. It was funny. All right, Dana, we have this in presenter mode. Is there any way that you can adjust your screen to duplicate presentations? Right now we are seeing the presenter view. There you go.
Does that do it?
Yep, you did it.
Great.
Rockstar. All right, well, I'm gonna let you man letting people in, Dana, because I want to honor everybody's time, and it is 12:02 and we have a lot of great stuff to talk about today. So I wanted to kick it off and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for attending. We are recording today's session, and I will send out a link to everyone after if they want to continue to view it, and it will get posted to our ERA YouTube channel. So if you did not know, I will throw into chat what our YouTube channel is. And we have a great micro-learning series kicking off right now about creating culture that's going to retain your talent as well, starring our very own Dana Vogelmeyer. We have 2 episodes, a few more are coming, followed by a fantastic series starring our very own Matt Davey, talking about additional, yes, I saw that move Matt made for following additional strategies for how to create SMART goals for your team members. So we've got this culture that's going to retain them, and now we're going to continue to develop them, which is going to be part of our conversation today about how to retain your top talent. So my name is Amanda Mosteller. I am the Director of Talent Development here at ERA. I joined back in May. I am having the pleasure of joining me is Dana Vogelmeyer, excuse me, Dana, our team member based out of Columbus, and Matt Davey, another one of our team members here in Cincinnati. And together we are the dream team of talent development professionals at ERA. And we are excited to chat with everyone today. We have a huge group of attendees today, but we would love for you all to see who else is in the room. So feel free to type into chat, introduce yourself, and let everyone know what company you're with. And you might see some fellow peers on the old chat saying, hey, good to see ya, and get connected virtually. So feel free to enter into chat what company you're with and who you are, because we are excited to have folks with us today. We are going to be talking about how to retain that top talent. And so Dana, if you could move the slide forward one, I think, and if it doesn't move, I'll know that I'm wrong, to talk about Organizational development strategies, because recognizing that retaining our top talent actually means several things. So we're going to be talking about how we can do this in terms of salary, benefits, perks, kind of what does that package look like? So that's one of those elements. Of course, building relationships at work is another one. And as we all continue to potentially change how we sit and where we sit, that becomes even more intentional on how we build those relationships. There's a lot of evidence to show that if I have at least one person that I work with that feels like a friend and that I feel connected with on a deeper level, I am more likely to stay at that organization. So it's really important that we create opportunities to build those relationships amongst folks. So we're going to talk about that and understanding, building relationships so they feel comfortable sharing with us how they feel, and then giving them those tools and trainings that they need and want. We know, and Gallup polls have shown even pre-pandemic, this is before the pandemic hit, Gallup polls were talking about seeing this data of individuals looking to their companies to continue their growth and provide career growth opportunities, which no longer means climbing up the ladder, right? So career growth is an experiential learning, stretch assignments, all kinds of stuff like that. So when we think about organizational development strategies, do we have the processes in place? Do we have the resources in place? Do we have the people and the processes and the things to help us implement and sustain something that is scalable for our organization? So those are some of those areas that, when not focused on holistically as a whole view, that's where we can start to struggle and we lose our top talent to organizations that do have that holistic focus. And all of these elements and how it impacts the employee is where we start to recognize those are things that can really retain that talent. So as we look at what we're going to focus on today and how to do that, great poll question. Anyone knowing how to use the green check red X function? Stop me though, Dana or Matt, if you're like, no, we have a poll prepared for that. Green check, red X. Do you feel like your organization does have all of those elements in place, from recruitment through employee life cycle, and all of those pieces of a great package? We build relationships, and we also, of course, have that great development approach. Where do you guys stand? Green check if you think we're there, red X if you think we have opportunity to grow. And that's a wonderful thing, to have opportunity to grow. So I'm looking over in our participant list to see if anyone's clicking the green checks, red X. It's in your reactions section. So you might see the reaction options in your tile buttons as a smiley face with a plus sign. And if you don't, it'll be in the 3 dots or more viewing options. If you click that drop down next to the green, you are viewing Dana's screen, you would see reactions in there. I see a few people marking those green checks, and I see a lot more people saying we have opportunity for growth here as an organization. And that's great. That's what we're here for. Not just for today's conversation, but in partnership with ERA. That's what we can really help organizations create. So thank you guys for coming in and joining us and marking those options. So when we think about those elements of what creates a good space for our team members, and I mentioned relationships, we're really wanting to focus on all of those elements for them. When I think about Maslow's hierarchy, and if folks are not really familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, from an organizational perspective, we want to make sure all of those needs are met for our team members, right? So when I think about it in terms of physical, those physical basic needs, coming up to safety needs as well, and that's both our work environment and where we work, and ensuring that they feel safe physically work environment and career-wise? Am I secure? Do I feel like there's a place for me and there's going to continue to be a place for me? Those are where we think about those elements as well. So it's a two-pronged element of safety when I think about it in the work world, right? Do I feel then on that extra level, we talked about relationships or one of those three elements today. Do I feel connected to my team? Do I feel like there's belonging? Do I see where I fit in what we as an organization do? And I've done a lot of work over the past couple of years with organizations in recognizing whatever the end goal is, whatever your organization does, whoever your output impacts, making sure every single role within your organization sees where they hit that. Even if I'm an internal support role, how does my function impact the rest of the company so that we as a company can impact those that are receive whatever it is that we do, whether it's a physical product or a service that we provide, recognizing how I do play a part and that I do feel connected and important and that I'm a piece of this puzzle is really important in people seeing how they're connected to the organization and the work that we do. And that is going to help engage me. And that's going to help me stay motivated. And that's going to help retain me because my company makes sure I feel valued and that I feel like I belong. And sometimes it's about mapping it out and then helping people see that and recognize that. And then moving on to esteem. Where is my self-esteem? And how am I feeling confident in my role? Do I feel like I have the resources? And this goes to that element of development as well. Do I feel like I have the resources, the knowledge, the expertise to do my role well? And I feel confident in that. If I don't feel confident in doing my role, I'm going to start looking elsewhere to a position where I think maybe I could do that role better. And so it's really important as an organization that we provide all of those elements, whether it's supporting our teams and onboarding practices and how we get them in the door and set up for success, also around peer, how do we empower our peers on our teams to help one another, and supervisory and leadership, right? How am I coaching and continuing to get my team member to feel like they are confident and competent in their role? And then that leads us up to that very top goal, of course, of self-actualization. And how am I going to ultimately feel fulfilled? And that's really from a corporate perspective where self-actualization comes into play is, do I feel fulfilled in my role? And if I feel fulfilled and I understand my purpose, then I'm hitting kind of that top tier there. So as we think about all of these things that we're going to be covering today, we're focusing on ensuring that we're an organization that's meeting the whole person. And each of these elements that hits all of these levels within what leads us to that fulfillment top tier goal, we're going to be an organization that supports our team members, and our team members are going to see it, and that's why they stay. Because the benefits packages are important, but that's not ever going to be the whole picture. I'm always going to say, that's never the whole thing. And ultimately, if that's all we're utilizing, we're not going to be able to retain our team members in that sense. So that's what we're targeting today, creating that holistic support, and that when all the pieces together are what retain our top talent and keep them with us over going to finding somebody else. Matt is going to start stepping in and talking about that next element related to this topic and how we can continue to strive to develop an organization that focuses on the whole employee and the whole system to keep them retained. So Matt, do you want to take it away?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. If I haven't met you, I bet there are people in here who have met me before. But I wasn't able to look at everybody on the list, of course. But my name is Matt Davey, and I know that Amanda had briefly introduced me earlier. But I've been here for a couple of years now at Employers Resource Association, and have pretty much spent my whole career doing training type of stuff, as well as things related, of course, to retention of employees and engagement and culture and all those things. So welcome and thank you. The only bad news that I have for you guys is that UK lost last night in the basketball tournament that's currently going on. So strange to think back that 2 years ago it was canceled, isn't it? Anyway, but sad news for me because I'm a big UK fan. Anyway, so to carry on with where we were and kind of on that bottom level, right? And some of the basic things that need to be met in order for an employee to want to stay with an organization. And there are always complex reasons, right? That people choose to leave or choose to switch directions, etc. But it does has something to do with these basic things too, right? And actually, I'm a big fan of the idea when you think about the bottom level of the pyramid there, just those, physiological kind of security, safety needs of those first two levels, is to not underestimate the value of clean restrooms. We go into and out of a lot of different organizations for our members, like some of yours, and it's amazing the variety of cleanliness and how straightened things are and that kind of stuff, and how much that really does seem to have an impact on the overall feel. And it's not just the clean restroom, but also clean hallways and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I like to point that out a little bit, that is a basic need, and it's hard to feel engaged and want to stay in an organization if you don't feel like your basic needs are being met, right? And that's just one of them. But some other key things that we point out in here is competitive wage. Of course, our motivation to a degree to stay with an organization can be affected by money. It's never all about money, right? And the more money in general, in my opinion, the more money you make, the less it becomes about making more money. But if you're not hitting a certain level at the bottom, it's really hard to stay engaged and care about the organization that you're working for. Because all you're thinking about is, I don't have enough money, So it does kind of start with a competitive wage. And there's a lot of different ways to do analysis to determine what a competitive wage is in your area and the type of work that your employees specifically do. And in general, I mean, let's face it, if you want to attract better talent or the best talent and you want to retain them, you have to be at least where they are, right? But really a tad higher is what's going to attract applicants. And supplementing that, of course, with benefits and perks, and heavily promoting those things as you have conversations with people. So the next thing, so competitive wage, of course, has to be there, in my opinion, to some degree, if you are concerned about retention of your employees long term. If you're not willing to go to a certain level of, or not able even to go to a certain level of wage, you are going to continue to have that issue. There are other things you can still do, but it's going to be hard to combat that once you're below a certain level, in my experience and opinion. But that just may be the case, and that's okay. So next thing, though, what I wanted to talk about was employee assistance programs. This, to me, is one of those like really underutilized benefits that a lot of organizations offer these days. And the employee assistance program in general obviously can help employees resolve personal issues, and when you can help people in their actual, lives outside of work, that helps them inside of work too, of course, right? An employee who's flustered over some situation going on in their life is going to make it that much harder for them to concentrate and be the kind of employee that you want them to be. So it's a win for them and a win for the business overall. So actually, Dana, do you mind if we could do a quick poll here? We had set one up beforehand for just seeing, it's two questions there. And the first question is, do you have an employee assistance program at work? And just a yes or a no. And then two is, how effectively do employees take advantage of this benefit from your perspective within your organization?
While that poll is running, Matt, I know at my last organization, we had this fascinating conversation around the view of what all it can be covered under an EAP and how much team members don't know that. And we did a whole communications run for a quarter when we were celebrating wellness, and we talked about financial wellness, as well as, other types of things you want to feel secure that you have in place outside of just the mental health wellness that most think of when they think of EAP, depending on how well-rounded your program is. I've said ours, we have financial advisors, we have legal advisors, we had everything, and our employees were like, what?
Right.
Yeah, there's so much you can get through it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wanted to share one too, that I know in one organization, there's had like a nurse line. So if you were a new parent and your child had a fever and you couldn't decide whether or not to take them to the emergency room, like how bad is this? You could call this nurse line 24 hours a day. So there are, to Matt's earlier point, tons of different things that you can use this for.
Yeah.
But I love, Amanda, that you said that, because I think that creating awareness for everybody about all the things is really important, because that's a benefit that they can utilize. Okay. So it looks
Dana
like
and Amanda are stealing my thunder here. That was where I was going next. No, it's all good though. It's all good. Yeah. I'm glad you brought it up, Amanda, because that's where it's something that you really have to hit people over the head with. But let's see how the poll is in terms of how much it's utilized.
Okay. Yeah. And 80% of the people said that they do have an EAP. 80% of the
That does not surprise me. It's become so common, especially through the probably your insurance company, that whoever you use, or your insurance broker that you use within your organization, they likely have some kind of offering for that. It's become very common. But still, actually, I'm a little bit surprised that 20% do not. I'll tell you, I really think it's such a valuable tool for supervisors to be able to use as well, and employees, but the key is the promotion. Because if you have an EAP and you put up a little pamphlet about it on the bulletin board next to the workers' rights poster, chances are nobody's ever going to look at it, and maybe they'll be aware that it's there, but don't really understand it, etc. So to me, it is something that you have to repeatedly push. So, and if we look at this, 25% not at all, 23%, a little more, sometimes 36%, very frequently 2%. I would be very keen to find out who are those 2%ers, and I'll come back to a question in a minute. But yeah, if you want to share, actually, do you push it really hard? Whoever put frequently in there, if you could share something in the chat, that'd be great. But I'll continue talking while whoever wants to respond in there. Anybody who put a 4 or 5, I'd be curious as to how often you push it. And because I do think it has to be something that's in your face. The organizations I've seen have success with it are ones that talk about it frequently. So to that point, some other things, as Amanda and Dana kind of mentioned there, was they can offer, EAPs can offer solutions, and sometimes think about it like discounts for daycare, right? Legal advice, like Amanda said. Actually, earlier today, me and Dana were talking about one time she called for a babysitter and was able to get a discount on daycare kind of stuff. And so the nurse line thing, Dana already mentioned that too, and mentioned it to me as well. And that makes so much sense. It's really a matter of reminding employees. And I think in general, it's so helpful to remind employees of the benefits that your organization brings to the table and offers. Because what often happens, right, is that we talk about these things during potentially the recruiting process and during the hiring practice, interview, et cetera. We probably talk about it again on day one, maybe, if there's some kind of orientation, right? And then it never gets discussed again. So we talk about it with them at the time when they're probably the most overwhelmed with information in general. And this goes to the bottom of the pile and somewhere in a stack in their drawer or whatever. So I think one of the keys in terms of having this be seen as a benefit by the employees themselves is really to hit them over the head with it, so to speak. Let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, because another big challenge with EAPs that I found too is the stigma that can go with them. And that can be an issue. And I think, again, bringing it up frequently and all the other things besides just therapy that it has to offer, or, drug dependency services or those kind of things, talk about some of those other things too. And that I think will also encourage people to take advantage of those more serious things at times too, because they're more just comfortable with the process and with the program overall.
We did have one in chat.
Great. Yeah.
Lorna White offered that her organization, in their EAP benefits, they receive up to 8 counseling sessions at no charge to the employee.
That is fantastic. And wow, at no charge at all. So it's the kind of thing of why would you not take advantage of that? And that is so healthy for employees. I bet you have some of the mentally most mentally stable or well-rounded staff out of all of us that are in this. Because a lot of it is the stigma of that kind of thing. But hey, it's like, hey, it's free. Why not go talk to somebody? Is really hard to not take advantage of that, you know? So that's great, Lorna. Thank you. And legal services, discounted rates, and financial counseling. Yeah, the financial counseling thing, I think, is enormously helpful too. I mean, that is also something that is probably underutilized, but could be so beneficial for people's lives and see as a benefit of working with you, you know? Yeah, and do you push it a lot, Lorna? Oh, and that's okay to say the name is there. Yeah, I don't think we are not here to promote certain EAPs or anything, but since you like them. And let me see here. Okay, so some other things, besides just the EAP, and I don't want to talk about that the whole time, is also some other perks that you might run into that you can offer. And again, this is all about, I think it's all about reminding people of what are the benefits of working at your organization, because we often do a pretty good job of that during the hiring process and maybe really early on in their employment, and then we just stop talking about it. But really, the organizations I see be the most successful with this kind of stuff and reminding people of why it's good to work there are the ones who talk about it pretty regularly, you know. But you have to remind, it has to be done deliberately, right? It's one of those things that you really have to be deliberate about, making sure that reminding yourself to say something about it in a meeting, put something up, talk about it frequently, literally in the conversations that you have day to day, you know. But some other unique perks, especially, are helpful. Things like, you know, offer summer Fridays. I think I've heard of a lot of organizations doing that, where, you know, for the summer months, everybody's off on Fridays for 3 months of the year. Everyone works a 4-day week. But really, there's always some kind of benefit with the organization. So a lot of organizations can't do things like that, and that's okay. But look for the things that are unique and good. Even if they're small, why not point them out? Again, those are the ones who seem to do it the best, are the ones who point them out, even the small stuff frequently. So anything that you can promote is good. Any kind of free meals or flexibility is, of course, huge too. So if you can offer flexibility in terms of start and stop times, or when you need to take care of something, that, of course, is also can be considered a huge benefit, as long as there's understanding that people don't take advantage, of course. But that's what will help, I think, retain a lot of people, is providing, not only providing these kind of opportunities for a decent wage, right, and these other perks, employee assistance programs, etc., but also reminding people of it a lot is part of the key there. So Dana, I think you're gonna speak next, right? Are we good?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Dana Vogelmeyer with ERA in Columbus, and I wanted to share, kind of thinking back to the pyramid when we were looking at kind of the middle, belonging, and in our personal lives, you know, we refer to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We refer to it as love. At work, we have friendships at work, and we have good relationships at work. And there is evidence to show that when people do have good friends at work, and actually on the Gallup poll, or on the Gallup Q12 employee engagement survey, it asks, do you have a best friend at work? And that's somebody that, you know, you go to lunch with, that you enjoy seeing, you look forward to seeing them every day. That's a great retention factor. So think about the environment with the team, and does everybody get along? Are they good to each other? And then the environment with you and your leader, or you and the people who report to you. And is that a good relationship? Nobody wants to drive in every day to come work with or for a jerk. There is one local organization. Thank you, Matt. There's one local organization here in town, and they have something that they call their house rules. And when you walk into the building, the house rules are posted on the wall there. So anybody that walks in sees them, their clients, but also new potential hires. And one of their house rules is no jerks allowed. And I love that because nobody wants to work with jerks. So when we do have that kind of an environment, people don't look forward to coming in, and you could lose somebody just simply because of the way they're being treated by a coworker. And certainly the relationship between the individual and their leader. The Mayo Clinic found a connection that said in their studies that your leaders, this is regardless of industry, regardless of your level. So you could be a C-suite level employee reporting to a CEO and you still feel this way. Your health is more impacted by the relationship with your leader than it is with your personal primary care physician, because you see your leader so much more frequently and they have such an impact on your esteem. And when your self-esteem is real low, or you feel kind of beaten down and you never get a good attaboy, or never have fun at work, you have a compromised immune system, and you are more often, you can get sick easier than if you feel good and you feel lifted up. So that connection there, when you think about how you feel at work. So I want you all to kind of think about, as you're, driving home from work, whether it's today or next week, or driving in, how do you feel? Are you excited about getting there and seeing, your coworkers or whatever it is you're working on? Or are you dreading it? And it could be part of those relationships. And then when you're driving home, oh, I love that someone said I'm jazzed. I love that. When you're driving home, do you still feel pretty good? Those are the things that we need to think about. What kind of an environment are we creating? So when we have those opportunities to enhance the relationship, sometimes that can be even through mentors at work. So what opportunities are we making people aware of and making connections for, so that we're helping them? Another thing that I just want to talk about a little bit relative to the relationship with their leaders. These are some big things, especially early days of the pandemic, and I don't believe will leave. That these are big things that people are looking for in their work. So we've all heard about the Great Resignation and people leaving because they're unfulfilled, or it's just, they don't feel the value of what they're getting is enough for them in that particular time. So they leave to go find something else. However, during those early months and still the early months, especially during the pandemic, remember when, if you can remember back then, I know it's kind of foggy anymore, but there were people trying to figure out multiple people might be working from home. You might have children also schooling from home. You may not have I'm going to call it private locations for everybody, where they can shut a door and attend a meeting, or where the kids aren't interrupted by some kind of noise or something like that. But there was a lot. So even before the pandemic, people felt stressed and there were elements of burnout. And then you put on top of that a pandemic that we're all thinking, what's going on now? How long is this going to last? What does this mean? I hope me or my loved ones don't get sick, right? So there's that added stress. Now I'm working from home. Maybe your company had some layoffs or some shutdowns. There were a large number of companies impacted and having to shut down. And so unemployment rose, and that uncertainty is really where I think that the leader can have some good connections with their team members. And we didn't always know, is everything going to be okay? We couldn't possibly know. And even now, we don't know what's going to happen next. Inflation, unemployment, the pandemic isn't over. Now there's a war. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world, and things that make people feel anxious and just not sure what to do next, how to prepare. So recognizing that and having some good conversations and helping people through it. But remember, if you're in a leadership position and you're having those conversations with your team members, is somebody having that with you? Is somebody just checking in? How's everything going? Do you have everything you need? Is there anything I can help you with? Those are 3 pretty powerful questions that can really make that connection pretty strong. Kind of easy too, but you've got to make the time for it. And then recognizing too, for when people say, something is going on and having some empathy for their situation. But also if, you know, you have people who maybe didn't get something done on time, or lost a client, or whatever it might be, that vulnerability that you can demonstrate. We all have had setbacks. We've all made errors at work. And if you as the leader can be vulnerable in that moment with them and share one of your setbacks and say, the world doesn't end over one setback. We all had them. It'll be okay. You know, that can go a long, long way. It's not always super easy to do, but it can be done. And I love this one story about vulnerability that I just want to share with you quickly about the kind of the life of a lobster. I think of the life of a lobster, and I'm sorry, Rachel, I know you heard this story yesterday, but thank you for listening again. Lobsters, when they're little, they shed their shell. And this is how they grow. So when they shed their shell, they go through this process and they kind of shake out of it. It's called molting. And the shell comes off, and then their little backs are very vulnerable and tender, and they're exposed. So they're super vulnerable to predators during that time. And they know it, you know, they're scared. So their shell, when it grows back the next time, comes back bigger and stronger, and they grow into this new shell. But then they shed it again. And this happens several times in their early lives. They continue to shed, they're vulnerable again, and then the new shell comes back. So it happens too as they get older. And I think that's how we are. You know, we grow through vulnerable experiences, and those are a lot of times our failures. We learn from it. You know, think about when you were riding your bike the first time and you fell down. You got hurt, you got back up, you did it again. Same thing at work. Maybe you worked on something that, you know, it didn't go according to plan, and life does go on. It's okay. We all make those mistakes. But, you know, that vulnerability between two people and having that conversation can really go a long way. And then when people have a good connection, they're not looking to leave. It's like, I love the people I work with. Why would I want to leave here? Right? So those are some things to just think about when you're looking at your retention numbers. You know, you probably have some people in your organization who are better connectors than others. Leverage them and what it is they're doing to help the ones who aren't the best connectors develop that skill. And then you can have some great work relationships in a place where no one really wants to leave. Okay, so I'm going to pass it back to you, Amanda.
I wasn't unmuted. I wasn't ready. I would, no, you're great. So, you know, I hope as we're talking today, we're starting to get our creative wheels turning and recognizing, gosh, it turns out there really isn't one magic bullet to do this. I've been talking with organizations lately about it's all the little things. It's every piece of this puzzle is where you create a culture in an organization where people want to stay. And that's really the answer. And the final piece to that puzzle is developing our folks. And I'm gonna say Richard Branson, and then I'm gonna be mad because I'm wrong. But I want to make sure. Hey, I was right. I use this quote a lot. There we go. I use this quote a lot, but I wanted to make sure I attributed it to the correct person. That Richard Branson talks so famously about train your people well enough that they can leave, but treat them well enough that they don't want to. And that's where we really want to also focus that final piece of the puzzle in developing our folks, giving them the tools to be successful. And that means every resource, and recognizing and hearing when there's a system that's outdated, or there's something that's clunky and it makes my job hard. And if we don't do something about it, I'm going to continuously, or I'm not trained in how to utilize it correctly. And so I'm flying by the seat of my pants in the system. And when I don't hear that and think, oh, I need to at least create a job aid or something to provide to team members, so there's a resource and a step-by-step with screenshots of how to enter this information in the system and how to do it, because this goes back to that, remember Maslow's hierarchy, that's really the foundation of what we're talking about today. That goes back to feeling confident and competent in my role. And then my stress can be reduced because this piece of my role isn't so irritating that it makes it difficult. Or our systems, the organization hears us and they validate our concerns. And we know implementing a whole new system takes a lot of work and a lot of money and can be something that's difficult. But if we can communicate back that we hear you and we're working towards a solution that will make it easier. In the meantime, here's a job aid to help when you're engaging in work with this system or with this tool, and team members feel validated and they feel heard. And ultimately, that's what they're looking for, right? We're looking to feel validated and heard by our organizations, and that it feels like something is being done in the meantime to help me out. Where you really run a risk is when that concept of train them well enough to leave you, but treat them well enough they don't want to. When a leader is fearful that if I do, and if you may have heard this with your leaders, and it's something to perk up to, when I hear someone say, I don't want to train them so that they leave because I don't want to deal with people leaving, we're really starting to wonder, do the team members want to work for and report to someone or have a leadership mindset like that of an organization that doesn't want to grow and develop and support me? And I can tell you the answer is no, they don't. And so ultimately, that mindset is creating turnover as well. It's creating that loss of talent that really would have been wonderful. So it's something to recognize that allowing people time away from their role to learn actually improves their ability to do the role. It's the chicken and the egg. I often have this conversation. It's the chicken and the egg. Can I allocate time to them to go learn so that they come back and are more engaged and motivated and productive? And ultimately, it's going to boost our, it's going to benefit everybody. I want us to talk for a second about shifting our mindsets as well about what development looks like. Because actually, if you know about the stats around career growth and development, and I don't just mean the Gallup polls around how people are looking for this, and we know this, but really often when we think of development, we think of a structured learning experience, and that's going to give them the tools they need to be successful, and we've done it. And I don't mean that we're doing check the box. I engage with our members all the time. That is not the mindset that anyone has, but I trained them. And so we're good, right? Well, that's actually only 10%. It's funny. I hear Matt laugh through the wall because he's muted, and that was just the funniest moment. And so often when we think of training, we think of that, but that's actually only 10% of professional development, which means there's 90% of development happening outside of whether that structured learning experience is an on-demand option, like an e-learning, a video course they watch, or a class that they take, whether it's live in person or live remote. There's other elements of growth as well. 20% of professional development is through relationships. So creating those intentional mentoring or coaching programs are ways, and coaching as a supervisor too, right? Those are ways that we can develop our team members. That's why we focus so much on leadership development, on learning how to coach and have those conversations, because we recognize, and many recognize, that doesn't happen in the classroom. If we could find that person. And finally, that's still only 30% of growth, which tells me 70% of professional development and growth and skills and knowledge and abilities is through experience. So really focusing on developing a hefty experiential learning approach is going to be a way to well-roundedly help your teams recognize that developing them is your focus too. And we're developing you through structured things, but that's only one piece of that puzzle. The biggest is intentionally scheduling and planning. What are those experiences we want them to have? And then how do we loop that back with the relationship piece of professional development? So making sure the supervisor is aware of the stretch assignments or the intentional experiences within their first 60, 90 year of being a partner of this team to say, they've had these experiences this week. You need to go ahead and get into a coaching conversation. Go have a conversation with them about what they experienced and what did they learn and how are we going to apply that in our role here or in a future role within our organization. We often talk about the generations, job hopping is a thing. And I often say, folks job hop when they feel there isn't that growth and that development mindset within the organization they're with. So they leave when they don't see anywhere else to go. And so if we can be intentional about creating those experiences and building that capability base and say, hey, there's lots of roles within our organization that utilize this. And if you're identifying that you really enjoy doing this type of work, when an opportunity opens up, we'll make sure you're aware of it in case it's something you're interested in pursuing. So we can capitalize on what we know about why people do this job hopping thing and what motivates that. And then let's create that in our own organization so that they're job hopping with us. They're still with us and we're still able to retain this talent that is motivated and engaged and passionate about what we do. We never want to lose that. And so let's really embrace what we know and then use that to our advantage. So when we think about giving them those tools, the training and the development, we're really looking at holistically all the ways we know people learn and grow, and then being intentional about how to use that so that they feel like, man, we know development is really important. It's one of those three pieces to engaging and retaining your top talent, and team members are feeling like I'm learning every day. They almost turn on the learning fire hose because every conversation is intentional and it's impactful. And there's all these connections that they're making. And so I'm developing in all areas all the time. That's a mindset that we can work to embrace within your organization and really create what that looks like so that it's something very intentional and people really love that kind of stuff. So that is shocker that the talent development person's talking so much about the value of talent development. It truly is really, really important. So while I'm talking, I don't keep on the chat. I don't know if any questions came through or comments or things that you really wanted to share out. I know.
Yeah, I can help you with that. Both Julie Blankenship and Mary Decker both had, I thought, extremely interesting points. And this fits somewhat with what you were saying there, because sometimes you're not going to be able to provide all of those things that Amanda's talking about, right? But going towards that is still worth it. And it fits somewhat with what Julie was saying there, although I think it was based on a different point. But she said, amen, we added a question to our exit interview process. Are you running towards something or are you running away from something? And then if it's running away, we talk about it. If it's running toward, we celebrate it as a success. If it's something that we couldn't have provided here.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. Great. I'm so glad you put that on there, Julie. And I encourage everyone else to take a read of it there if you didn't notice when she had put that in the chat. And then Mary brought up the point too about hearing a lot about decreased work stress. And the idea or the perception of it, like the number of job responsibilities you have, et cetera. And that's something that people are much more interested in. I mean, whether we agree with it or not, or like it or not, the reality seems to be that people are much more inclined today than ever to focus on work as a way to live versus living to work versus working to live. And it seems like a lot of people want both, and it's a different mindset, but we have to embrace some of it if we want to retain people. Go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and if I can even build on that retention concept for that, like empowering some of your team members that might say, I love to do meditation. I would love to run a monthly stress release thing out on the lawn or a virtual meditation. Can I do that? And that goes again to that experiential growth and learning. Is we would love to give you, team member, that opportunity to champion this type of concept. Often when I work with organizations, I say a lot of this stuff doesn't have to cost money. It's not anything extra we have to build and implement and run. It's capitalizing on what's already there. And that's how you retain folks, is by capitalizing on what their passions are and what's already there and embracing it. I think that's a great point. Like, it's a mind, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, whether we agree with it or not, it's a changing with the times trend. And it's been, the pause button has been up and fast forward has been hit. People are really thinking more and more about working my life, work into my life instead of my life around work. And so it's time to embrace that mindset ourselves as employers. And how do we then support that while still accomplishing what our company's mission and goals are? We
Right.
still have to work.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. And I did want to highlight that exit interview tool, because when I think about, we always say for products and services, right? Your people are your best and worst marketers. That's true of employment as well. So to create a culture where I celebrate a success for you that we could not have provided means when that individual is talking to somebody else who's starting to look, they haven't burnt that bridge, and they're saying, you know, I used to work for this one organization. They were fantastic and they were so celebratory of my own successes, and you should absolutely go work there. Let me see if I can get in touch with that recruiter and pass your resume along. It's all about, I mean, the best and worst marketer concept is et al. It is everywhere. And I think when we switch our mindsets to that kind of environment and to that kind of culture, we're never going to, people are not going to stay with us, you know, their entirety of their career anymore. That's a thing of the past. And so we know people are going to leave, but if they can leave and refer back other individuals as they know someone's looking, because they had such a great employment experience, it even helps us attracting new top talent, because our top talent that has moved on is a referral for us. So I love that question. I love that mindset. I celebrate your celebrating. That is wonderful. So Dana, I'm going to hand it back off to you. I'm so sorry, everyone. I have to hop 5 minutes early to run to another meeting, but I have really enjoyed chatting on this topic. I will get this posted to our YouTube channel, HRXPERTS, and you will see the ERA logo, and we will and have all of that there so that everyone sees this content continuing on throughout their lives. Throughout your lives.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Amanda. Yep.
Okay.
And we're going to take any questions or comments too here, but go ahead, Dana. I just wanted to make sure people didn't start dropping off thinking we're done, but.
Yes, yes. So thank you for saying that, Matt, because we definitely want to hear your questions. And we also love getting your ideas in chat. This is a great outcome of webinars with so many different people in different industries and experiences. We can all learn from each other too. So just the last thing that we want to talk about a little bit, you see here, keep checking in with people. When you think about the entire work experience, and Amanda's talked about the fact that people aren't going to stay with you throughout their entire careers. And the average for like a mid-level management person is about 3 to 5 years in that role. That's an average. So if there's going to be some turnover, that means teams are going to have different supervisors, different dynamics, different kinds of relationships. But whoever is the leader of the team, or even a lead, to just keep checking in with people and see how they're doing. Maybe there's something that you can change, or an obstacle that you can remove for them, or just some way to make things a little easier, maybe more flexible. But it's not like a one and done conversation. So if you're consistently having one-on-one meetings with your team members, checking in with people, seeing if they are looking for some other development. I love that in the exit interview, you're running away from something, but also you hear sometimes people will do stay interviews, and just an opportunity to ask people like, what's going well? What should we keep doing more of? Or what kinds of, benefits that we're not providing that you hear others have. You heard about summer Fridays, and, Matt said that's not going to work for everybody, but, maybe there's a version of something different that works, but just kind of keeping in tune. I heard just yesterday from somebody that their organization, they're returning to work 3 days a week. And many people are not real thrilled about 3 days. It's kind of 3 mandatory days. So it's sort of flexible, but not as flexible. But during until the end of April, they're going to give everybody free breakfast and lunch those 3 days. And they're going to talk about it and see how things go. And they said, we will revisit this at the beginning of May. So it felt different, and just think about people not having to maybe do their lunch preps on Sundays or or packing lunches ferociously in the morning before they leave for work. But, just eliminating that stress, having one more thing that's kind of good in the good column helps. And also knowing that they'll take your feedback. They'll listen and take your feedback. So maybe it'll go to something more flexible. I'm going to look in chat, or Matt, maybe you've looked to see if there are any questions that have come in.
No, not yet, but we hadn't, I guess, officially said, but please,
Okay.
yeah, I would say at this point, go ahead. And that stay interview thing, I think is such a cool concept. I do think it's one of those things that you have to be very deliberate about how you do it, in terms of you have to be somewhat careful. Otherwise, there's a risk of it feeling like we're trying to figure out if you're leaving, So I do think it has to be done in a very genuine way from the organization's perspective, that we really do want to hear how you're feeling about the company, So I think that construction of the questions carefully, how you follow up on it, how you even approach them with it in the first place, I think is something that's worth taking the time to consider, really. But if you do, I think it had tremendous benefits.
Absolutely.
Totally, yeah, really good idea.
I see
Really cool
Mary's.
concept. Yeah.
Mary Decker says that they're doing, she's been considering completing state with new hires at 6-month point and again at a year. Yeah. So especially, Mary, think about in your trends, where have you seen the most people leave? And maybe that's why you picked the 6 and the 12 months. Maybe that's kind of the point where we see a lot of people leave at 6 months. We see a lot of people leave at 12 months. Wherever it is, catch them ahead of time. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and great point. And then Julie brought up a book about them, actually, by Richard Finnegan, on stay interviews. So if that's something you're interested in, that's probably a great place to start. In fact, Julie, thank you for saying that, because I'm going to look at it myself.
Yeah.
This is
add that to our book club.
Yeah, exactly. This has been wonderful in terms of some participation and just hopefully hearing what others' perspectives are. So please, if there's anything that you want to throw out, like something unique that you guys do that you feel like is at least an attempt at retention, whether it's a unique perk that you offer, or a some kind of other developmental thing, throw it out there in the chat would be really helpful for everyone. And or any questions that you might want to see what others think, or what we think, of course.
So the question is, can you remind me if this qualifies for continuing ed credit?
What organization are you asking about? I believe it does, though, for sure.
For term or PHR.
Right. Yep. My understanding is yes. I will verify that, though, and make sure we get that to you, because I know another webinar that we did include that. Let me see if I can ping Chelsea real quick, actually, Dana, so I could put that in there.
Okay. And I would like to ask, go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, I swung back into my laptop. For HRCI, it would qualify through a self-report. I do not know if we got this pre-approved through SHRM, but HRCI would be a self-report option.
Thank you. And for everybody we still have, I would love to just hear, we heard somebody said, I'm going to add that to my exit interviews. Is there something else that you heard today that you think, I love that, I'm going to apply that or try that? Something maybe we haven't done, that you haven't done before, that you heard today that you liked? House rules, yeah. That's a good one, isn't it? And it's kind of a fun term, as opposed to like these are our expectations. It just sounds fun. Total rewards. We have a lot of entry-level manufacturing positions that look only at their base salary rate. We'll be promoting everything else they get throughout the year. Great, Julie. Thank you. encouraging again for corporate to increase the EAP from 3 to 7 to 8 sessions. Very nice. Yeah. There's so much stress right now that I think that's a great thing to promote and to encourage. What are some more examples of those house rules? I remember one is embrace the chaos, because in their particular industry, it's advertising, and they have sometimes like huge peaks, you know, and deadlines and things. And then other times it's kind of more down here, but they say embrace the chaos. It's part of this world. And, it's not something you can change. There's one that I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something about being good to each other, kind and helpful and a good teammate, that kind of thing. Can't remember what the other ones are. Oh, on-site car detail. They love it. Nice.
Yeah, that's a cool concept. Yeah. Heck, if you're a big enough organization, you could even have somebody come in and give haircuts, once a month, or back rubs. I've seen that. I have a massage person come in, and that massage person's fine with it because they get paid, but the employee still has to pay for it, but it's pretty reasonable. It's just 15 minutes kind of thing. But I love the car detailing thing. That's pretty cool. And I love the house rules thing too, by the way, Dana. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, those fun perks can really go a long way.
Yeah. Oh, and as far as the SHRM credit thing, I was not able to find something. And we are at time, I suppose, so we should probably wrap up. But yeah.
Okay, I want to share one more thing, Matt. So please, the house rules are at a company called Geben, Geben. So if you want to look at their website, you can do that. And I just looked, one of theirs is design your day by designing your team. So again, with kind of some flexibility, but also using everyone's unique strengths. So what are they good at? Or maybe just during this week, I need you, Matt, to really focus on these things, and I'll do all the other stuff as long as you can get it, because Matt's really good at that thing, right? So some flexibility and using your unique skills and strengths goes a long way too. Okay, thank you for that, Matt.
Good. And I should add briefly just at the end here that we are here for any kind of training and development, organizational development, OD type stuff that you guys may have a need for. So please reach out to us. I'll put my name and email in the chat just in case anybody doesn't have it. And would love to have a conversation with you about this kind of stuff, and just to chat about what's going on at your organization and where you're looking for any kind of help. But it was pleasure meeting all of you today. And Dana, great job too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah. And you have a great weekend.
Yeah. And I'm sorry about Kentucky, Matt. That was unexpected, heartbreaking.
Indeed.